Hey everybody, Stippling here, and rather than looking at a set this time, we'll be looking at a combination model of Umarak the Destroyer, which utilizes all of these summer beasts as well as the Destroyer himself. Because these parts come from multiple sets, I'm not going to take the time to pour out each box and show you the bags. Instead, I've laid out all the parts for you to observe. While the majority of these parts obviously come from Umarak the Destroyer, you can see a clear indication that each set has its own influence in this overall build. The interesting thing to note about this combination model is it only contains 32 more pieces than the official Umarak the Destroyer set. That being said, according to the box, he's supposed to be a lot bigger, so let's go ahead and get started with building this monstrosity. So this is the core body piece for the combination model, and you can already tell he's got a very similar construction to Umarak the Destroyer. There's a few rearranged pins and already this inclusion of this 5-long Technic beam, but for the most part the build is very similar right now. He got gearboxes on his gearboxes. Click! So there's his body, and there's the rest of it. I kind of feel like this step is just to add 2 more parts to the parts count. Nah, just kidding, that's just a little bit of reinforcement there. But wait, gears more! The obligatory useless half pin. Somehow I'd hoped this neck went away, but I have a feeling it didn't. Hey, that's new. The Technic Beast. Definitely didn't see that coming. Lesai. I bet you can't stand up this time. Lego, your wizardry never ceases to amaze me. Nah, it's those giant feet. Another giant foot. The construction of the arms and the mechanical claws are identical between this combination model and the official Umarak the Destroyer. What I find interesting though is that they recommend orienting the fingers this way as opposed to the official instructions for Umarak the Destroyer, which recommend having them that way. Interesting. Spidery Arm Number Two. The head construction is identical except the following changes. Job's done. So that is Doomarak, as they call him. He's definitely a lot bigger and a lot badder. But I don't know how I feel about the build. It felt kind of tedious doing the majority of it a second time. The arms were more or less the same, the legs are more or less the same, the head construction was the same. With most of the changes revolving around building his torso just slightly larger, it felt like I spent the latter half of the build just repeating myself. In hindsight, if I wanted to build this and had an Umarak the Destroyer handy, I would have just ripped off the arms and legs and attached them to the body. This review is going to be a little different in that I'm not going to go over each and every aspect of the combination model, as a lot of his components are very, very similar to Umarak the Destroyer. So if you're interested in the intricacies of this set, I would look first to the Umarak the Destroyer review I did, and then go on and watch this combination, because this video is going to focus solely on the differences and anything I find interesting in the overall construction. The head itself is identical to the original Destroyer, except the 4 Borak eyes used to cover up the holes in its construction. It's a decent choice, but then again, now you have blue pins in there, so you win some, you lose some. When looking at his head, you can't help but notice that isn't the highest point on the figure. Instead, that's taken up by a half shadow trap, attached as almost a collar to his back of his neck. This is very similar to Lava Beast, and it attempts to cover up the ugly construction of the neck, and I think more or less fails to do so. The Shadow Trap piece is attached via a pin, so it can rotate slightly back and forth. The Shadow Trap is also the new location of his signature chain, which I don't know how I feel. It looks more like an earring in this position than a kind of a badge of honor or just kind of loose equipment on the side of him. Underneath his collar, we have a plethora of purple. We have 2 purple pauldrons to replace the just generic black armoring we had here previously. And we have a half purple mace tacked onto his back that can kind of spin. This isn't an action feature or anything, it doesn't move his arms, it's just kind of there. To try to fit in this purple, I think they did a pretty good job, especially isolating it to one section. His long body is long. It is a big construction, and it's almost twice the length of the new waist-articulated torso piece we have. Because there's so much stretching involved in the torso, we can now fit an additional armor breastplate, which is from Lava Beast. And in addition, we have 2 more shadow traps, kind of simulating rib cages in addition to the rib cage we have. I think that's a pretty cool idea. These shadow traps, just like the one on the neck, do move. Just not very much, and it's kind of a useless articulation. These arms are built up identical to the Umarak the Destroyer arms. The only change is they took out the talon pieces that created his claws and replaced them with these blades. The action feature's still the same, and you can still move these up and down. The unfortunate side effect for creating such large fingers for this hand is that the 2 gears attached are not friction heavy enough to hold the fingers in poses, especially when the arm is in an upward motion. The fingers like to splay outward when you do that. Another virtually identical construction is the legs. The actual build is the same, but they swapped out some armor pieces and added 2 more shadow traps as kneecaps. Because of his massive size, his feet had to be made bigger. So they have, instead of a smaller foot attached to the back, they now have one of the larger ones. And these feet are huge, but they do a great job at allowing him to stand and almost lean backwards as he's standing, which can be necessary to achieve some of his posing. So that's all we're going to focus on in terms of reviewing him. Like I said, he's pretty much the same as Umarak the Destroyer, just bigger. So we're going to move on to something that I think everyone is much more interested in seeing, and that is size comparisons. Our first size comparison comes between Umarak the Destroyer and the combination model. As you can see, the combination model is huge by comparison. He makes Umarak the Destroyer look like a tiny Toa. I don't think the Toa would have any chance of surviving against this version of Umarak. I do like the claws on Umarak the Destroyer better, and I think that they would have looked better like that versus the blades on top. Here's a comparison between all 3 versions of Umarak. You can see the natural progression as he descends into chaos due to the Mask of Control. Here's a size comparison that everyone's been after. And I can't say just by glancing at this that I can really tell which one's bigger. Let's kind of look at it a little closer. I think looking at this back-to-back comparison, you can kind of tell, depending on what angle you look at. Sometimes the combination model looks bigger, other times General Grievous looks bigger. I would say the size comparison comes down to how you look at it. If you're looking purely at the highest point, I would say General Grievous has it, depending on how you pose him. If you pose his head really low, this combination model wins out due to the claw piece attached. I can't help but feel like the designer intentionally put this claw piece on here to attempt to create the largest CCBS creation ever. If I was to make a choice, I would still say General Grievous with his default head position is slightly taller than this combination model. Sorry guys. So that's pretty much all I have for this one, folks. The size is impressive. It's a cool figure to have for sure, but I think I still like the regular Umarak the Destroyer better. As stretched out as he is, this one looks even more stretched out. And the color scheme is great for a combination model, but if you were to think of it as an official set, it wouldn't be doing so good. So if you had to choose between one, all the beasts and Umarak the Destroyer, or to take them apart and create this combination model, which would you choose? Do you think this combination model is worth losing 4 figures? Also, I didn't show it here, but the set itself only uses a fraction of the number of parts that the 4 official sets come with. So you end up with a ton of extra parts to play around with. I'm sorry that this review took so long to come out. It just took me some time to prepare. I actually built a mock version of Umarak the Destroyer combination model. It was correct size-wise, but the back was way off, so I'm very happy I waited for the official instructions to come out before I reviewed it, because it just wouldn't have been right. With this review done, that means all I have left is to do a wrap-up video of all the Summer 2016 sets, so look out for that. That shouldn't take longer than this took, and then I'll continue on with more mocks, more reviews, and more of everything you're used to. Thanks for watching!